Hey Harmonizers, it's a Mustang Alfie update. I'm going to show you guys some of the obstacle stuff he was working on and even finishing with the obstacle show that he got to take part in. And this is with student Maisie riding him, who's a junior student. She's doing a great job. That was a little backup that she's working on. And for her goal was to do our obstacle show. So she's more of a Western rider, likes to do the obstacles. Not as much into the jumping and things like that we also do at our farm. So it's great for Alfie to do a little bit of different stuff. And it's fun because he gets to ride in some of these group lessons, which means he's learning to work around with other horses and ride around the rail, which is great. And you can see she's going around there trotting in the group. And it's great because we were doing a good job of combining the English riders who enjoy jumping with our little Western rider, but they're similar in age, and it's always fun for people to ride with friends that are their age, even if they are doing different topics. And so we've got a mixture of obstacles set up as well as jumps, and he gets to do the obstacles, and then the other students are sometimes focusing on more jumping. But because of the obstacle show coming up, we've got all of this fun stuff set up, and so he was practicing for that, and the other kids also did a little bit of that stuff, and you can see he's doing really well. Going around doing circles, and it's always fun to have different visuals set up for people to practice steering around. So even if you have zero desire to train to go over obstacles or do an obstacle show, it can just be really fun to give your horse a little bit more of a purpose for what are we doing around this arena, because arena riding can get pretty boring and dull for horses. It can make them get sometimes even a little bit sour too. They can just get a little bit irritated, or they can get really surprised if certain things start to happen that are a little bit different and outside of the routine. So if you just plan to change it all up on purpose every now and again, even once a month, just change your arena up and put different stuff around, even hang some posters or blankets or saddle pads, or who knows, when it's Christmas time, set up Christmas decorations and then change it all around. That just helps get the horses used to variety and change, and then it's not so overwhelming when their regular life changes. And that's just a great way to help build their confidence and build their trust as well. So they're warming up, doing a bunch of different things there. And then I'll show you guys him working on his obstacles and making his progress. And we set up our arena for our show usually a few days before the show actually happens. And then that way our students can practice on everything set up. And then before the show, we have it open for everybody to practice. But because our horses have already practiced on the obstacles, it doesn't crowd the arena as much. And so it's more open and available for the people that have trailered their horses in and they're not used to that environment. So we try to make sure it's a really successful experience for everybody that comes, because it's really just about having fun with your horse. So these guys are doing a little bit of a warm up around the rail, doing trotting, walking. They're going to do some canter transitions here in a minute, and practicing with different speeds as well. We love to do speed control, practicing those transitions, making sure that the horses are listening. Keeps the horses really engaged. You know, what is my rider saying? What are we doing next? And as long as our riders are rewarding the horse, meaning not necessarily cookies, but they're giving them verbal praise or little scratches, reassuring them that they're doing the things that we like, then it helps the horses feel motivated and get warmed up and ready to do the more difficult tasks. So this is him now getting a little bit more warmed up, and so he's going to get into that canter work pretty soon, and then we're going to try some obstacles. And not a lot of, or I should say most of our obstacles are pretty easy to set up. So if you don't have hardware skills at home, I'm going to show you guys lots of fun things you can do with just really basic obstacles that are easy to find and implement. Here's Alfie doing his little canter, going around the rail while everybody else is standing in the middle of the ring. And that's a good skill to practice too, so the horses learn to stay out and do different things and not always feel like they need to come into the center of the arena to stand with everybody else. That can be a tricky thing for sure. Horses can want to drift into the middle. It's like, hey, why is everybody else standing in the middle having a break? I want to have a break too. And instead he's going to earn his little cookie for going out and doing some stuff. And then he'll go for his little canter going the other way. And this is a really interesting thing for me, because Alfie was my little guy that I was training for the South Carolina Mustang Challenge, and then my accident happened, and I went from being the only person that had ever cantered him to now The only way that he's kind of staying in riding training and going is he's doing some lessons, or we have coaches ride him. And it's tricky because, you know, I so badly can't wait to get back on a horse and actually put some more miles on him, because I really think he's going to be a special little guy once I get some more jumping and experience and, you know, canter weaving, all those things. I just didn't have a chance to get there with him before my accident happened. So he had a lot of great foundational skills there, but there's definitely some fine tuning I can do. Like, for example, there he had his wrong lead, and then she broke to a trot to pick up the correct lead, which is a really nice thing to do. And hopefully I'll be able to put some more miles on him, and we'll actually get to those flying lead changes, which was just something that we hadn't dabbled in yet, because I really want to make sure my horses have a good understanding first, that they're not worried or upset. Because if you push horses too soon, you can cause them to become kind of flighty and worried. And you can just kind of see when she's cantering around, there's some greenness that kind of sparks through. Greenness meaning inexperienced. You know, the corners aren't necessarily as flowy. You know, she's having to steer around the arena rather than him just going on autopilot, following around the arena. So all of those things are going to come with a little bit of time. And we have different priorities of different things that we focus on. We like to do a lot of these types of challenges where we're trying to train both the horse and rider to talk to each other a little more. They've got to communicate. So here they're doing a backup with the poles. And here's a really fun one you can set up. You can see how we've made basically a T shape with these poles. And it doesn't require a lot of poles. You just need about 6 poles, and you can set this up. And then you have lots of ways that you can use them. You can walk forwards through them, you can back through them, you can back the L, and you can even go sideways over them depending on where your horse is at in their training. Here we have little gates, but you could use regular standards, and the task is simply to pick up the rope and put it back down, which is a great introductory step to being able to ride a gate with your horse, or a rope gate. And you could use just a regular jump standard. You could use the side of the arena rail, whatever works for you. This is one of our bridges. This is one of the more narrow bridges, and he does that really well. And that one is something that you have to build and put together, so it's a little harder. But you could practice going over a pole and then doing a trot transition to practice the energy control piece, slowing down and then coming into a walk. And that one is just a piece of plywood that we painted in a checkerboard pattern to give that visual effect. So a simple 4x8 sheet of plywood and some paint, and you can make yourself a pretty interesting obstacle. This here is just a turnaround box, so it's literally 4 poles, and you can make it a box that kind of contains you, gives you a visual of where you've got to turn around in. If you don't have poles, you could even use lead ropes to make that box. And then here we're going to do those are the barrels with the stuffed toy on top. So it's going to be a pick up and carry, or a pick up transfer. You can use barrels, you could use jump standards, and you can use any type of stuffed toy to pick up and put over. A stuffed toy is great because it's soft and it's not something that's going to easily get caught on your horse. So it's something that you can easily pick up and transfer. Going over our checkerboard there with our castles in between. There's lots of dirt on the board, but you can see the checkerboard pattern. And then this is a walk-by obstacle where you just have to go through the poles, and it means you go close to the little cow head that's on the little stand there. So this was practicing the little obstacle course. She's going to finish here with our other set of bridges, which does take a little bit more to set something like that up. And we've set it up in this cute little Y pattern, so that way you can choose which way you go. Now, if your horse doesn't do something the way you wanted, like there he walked off of the bridge, a great solution is just to go back and do it again. And this is where one of the things you want to be really careful with. We repeat things if our horse didn't quite do it the way we wanted. And if they do it the way we want, we move on to the next task. Because if you're constantly repeating things, if they do it right or they do it wrong, it becomes really hard for the horse to tell, do I need to improve what I just did? Because if they did it correctly and you're just do it again, do it again, do it again, it's really confusing for them. So practice usually has to be not just for perfection, but just progress. So here they're coming in to do the T obstacle again. So there's an example of how you can walk forward into your T. You can also back into it. You can back in from any of the options. And you can see Alfie sometimes gets into this moment where he's just kind of pushing his head. He's like, why are you pulling on my face? And it's like his brain needs to compute that he needs to go backwards. And then he's like, oh, right. You're pulling on the reins because that means go backwards. And although there's some things to work on in terms of trying to get in time with the horse's feet, finessing how much pressure you're using on your reins. Remember, this is a youth rider that's doing a really great job riding a green little Mustang that doesn't have a lot of under saddle training because he just got started under saddle this past summer. So he doesn't have a ton of under saddle training. So they're doing a great job. And the main thing is to stay persistent so that way you don't give up and you follow through, so the horse realizes, oh, like that's what I was supposed to do. So you have to be careful that you don't get into a pulling match where it becomes a lot about pressure or where it becomes a fight. You want it to be soft. You want it to be where the horse starts to understand what they're supposed to do and not get really upset. Because think about it. If you were somebody learning something new and your instructor started to get angry and, oh, I'm going to get mad at you. You got to do it right now. Oh, hurry up, do this. That could just get your anxiety level through the roof and you might not even be thinking about what it is that you're supposed to do. So instead, you want to be calm. You want to be thinking about what is it that I'm trying to tell you to do. So Maisie's come back into the little T shape. She's starting again and she's adding the pressure even softer on the reins and trying to work on that timing piece of he steps and then trying to release the rein a little bit. And a little bit more time or timing practice will help there, but you can see she already gets it a lot better and then gives them a little scratch there to reassure that that was a lot nicer and then moves on. So that's really great to take the time to slow down. It doesn't mean you have to be more firm with your horse or use more pressure. Sometimes it means slow down, be clear, make sure your body's being clear and work on that timing piece. Here's that pickup and put down again, which Alfie is super great at those kind of obstacles. So it's really nice about that. Pretty sure he's just happy that he gets to stand still and do a little bit of a break. He's definitely a Mustang that errs a little bit more on that lazy side, although he's kind of this perfect blend of he goes when you ask him to go, but he's super happy to slow down and walk or even stop afterwards, which is great. Here into the box and doing the turnaround again and practicing that trot to the box and trying to do that energy control piece right before the box. And you can do this with poles, like even just walking or trotting between poles and just practicing that energy up and energy down, because it's all about, can you run, or in this case, trot, and then slow down and here come to a complete stop while you do a ground tie. So she's dismounted and is walking around him. He's supposed to stand still. This is the ground tie type obstacle, and the box gives that visual of stay inside the box of poles. So the box of poles you can use as a turnaround where you turn around inside the box of poles. You can dismount your horse and it can become a ground tie. You can even just trot through the box of poles or potentially even canter through depending on what the spacing is. So there's lots of options you can do with just 4 poles like that and gives you some different things to try. So here now Maisie is figuring out, I want to get on my horse and I want to use the mounting block. What is the best way to do that? And it's these little things that can sometimes help set you up for a competition where you might not have thought about it before, because you usually get on at the regular mounting block and you're not used to positioning your horse in different ways. So Maisie's kind of cool because she just brings Alfie around and she ends up just getting on from the right side because that's what made sense to her for how to position her horse. So when you're practicing for a show, especially an obstacle show, it can be really handy to practice all of these little things. Even though you know how to get on your horse, if you're not used to having mounting blocks in different spots, it can be a little bit tricky to piece that all together and figure out how that flow is going to go. Because it was a little awkward there, getting off and then like switching sides of your horse. And for a competition for obstacles, you want to try to get everything pretty smoothly, which means that it just flows from one thing to the next and no moments of hesitation of like, where are they going to go next or what are they doing there? So here she's finishing up her last couple obstacles, and I'm going to show you guys a little clip from the show as well. And here she's doing a little trot to the last obstacle to show again a little bit more of that energy control piece of trotting and then transitioning to walk in the corner and coming up on the bridge, this time getting him to steer straight across, doing a really great job there. So at the horse show, I only was able to get a tiny little clip of her at the end, but you can see we've got people watching at the end. There's a little bit more decorations added, and she's gone around, did all of the obstacles really well, and ended up placing really well in her classes too. So super congrats to Maisie, and great job working with little Mustang Alfie. Thanks for watching.
Remember to subscribe and check out harmonyhorsemanship.com for even more learning.